Happy New Year! I was pretty sick last week. I had food poisoning. I actually blacked out, and apparently I kept repeating over and over again, P.S. this is not my deathbed, which got me thinking, so I humbly present to you this list of the top 5 people who died at dinner. Number 5 is Lucius Spivey Cilo. He was a Roman senator in the 2nd century, and he died by choking on a single hair in a glass of milk. I'm just picturing him in heaven, right? And everyone's like, oh, Lucius, what did you do to get here? And he's like, funny story, but I only made it by a hair. Number 4 is Julian of Clay de la mettrie. He was a French Enlightenment philosopher and physician. He proposed the metaphor of the human being as a machine. He was like, oh, hey, I'm a total hedonist, and I'm an atheist, and what? And then he went into exile because he also published a bunch of satirical pamphlets that made fun of his fellow physicians, and you probably shouldn't do that. So the French ambassador to Prussia was really happy with La Mettrie for curing him of an illness, and he threw La Mettrie this huge feast. Anyway, La Mettrie was like, oh hey, look at all this pate, I'm gonna eat it all. And he proceeded to do so. Very impressively, I might add, and very unfortunately, as the pate happened to be spoiled and he died of food poisoning. Number 3 is Adolf Fredrik, who was an appointed king of Sweden. There were appointed kings. There were these 2 political parties, the Hats and the Caps. He was being promoted by the Hats. I love those names. It just sounds like something the Doctor would have done. Like, he would have shown up in Sweden in the 1700s and been like, hey, you guys need some names for your political parties? I like hats. Hats are cool. Go with those names. Adolf Fredrik was a figurehead ruler who didn't do all that much, although he did have a penchant for making snuff boxes. Kind of a weird hobby. He also liked to eat. And this is where the trouble comes in. He died in 1771 after eating a meal of lobster, caviar, sauerkraut, kippers, and champagne, and then finishing that up with 14 servings of his favorite dessert, semolina, and he became forever remembered as the king who ate himself to death. Number 2 is Francis Bacon, the father of empiricism and the founder of the scientific method. His mother was hilariously named Anne Cook Bacon. So one night Bacon was driving through London with a friend and he said, do you know, I bet we could preserve a chicken. Like if we stuffed it full of snow, it would keep and then we wouldn't have to eat the chicken right away. His friend thought that sounded like an interesting idea, but Bacon said, no, let's try this right now. Went out, bought himself a chicken, stuffed it full of snow, caught terrible pneumonia from that. So Bacon knocks on the door of his friend who lives nearby, this Earl, but unfortunately the Earl is in jail from pissing off the king. Fortunately, the Earl's servants are like, oh, Bacon, come on in. They let him stay in the guest room where he takes to bed and dies 3 days later without ever getting to eat that chicken dinner. And number 1 is Tycho Brahe. He was a famous naked eye astronomer. Brahe's kind of an interesting dude, most notably because when he was in college he dueled another nobleman and lost his nose. So he wore this metal nose that he glued on his face for the rest of his life. Also, he had a pet elk that he kept, and this elk ironically died after consuming a bunch of beer at a banquet and then falling down the stairs. I say that he died ironically of this because of how Brahe met his famous end. So he was at this dinner being thrown by a nobleman and he really had to pee. Except it's bad etiquette to leave the table and go to the bathroom. So he didn't. By the time he got home, he couldn't pee. He just couldn't, and then he died not so long after of uremia. Not to laugh in the face of death or anything, but it is pretty interesting that both Tycho Brahe and his pet elk died after consuming too much alcohol at banquet. Those are my top 5 people who died at dinner. You can let me know your favorite in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, to follow me on Twitter, and if you like makeup and fashion, I have a guru channel and I'm putting a link to that right here. Bye!